Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura, as you saw. I'm going to start by asking you to imagine a food in your life. It can be, let me make sure I got this. Whatever. My presentation is called Why We Eat, Why We Live. And it's not showing up, but that's all right. I'm telling you the name right now. Okay, I want you to start by imagining a food in your life. Any food. It can be your favorite food, your comfort food, or just a food that you eat often. Why do you think of that food? Why do you like it? Is it in the texture, in the taste, in the way that it fills up your stomach? For me, one of those foods is dumplings. I love the taste of dumplings, but I think also beyond that, there's so much variety. You can steam them, you can pan fry them, you can fill them with chicken or pork or vegetables. Love dumplings. Let's go deeper though. Think about that food again. Is there another reason that you feel drawn to that food, the reason that you thought of that food? Because for me, dumplings are not just that full feeling in my stomach after I eat 20 of them in a row. For me, dumplings are also standing in the kitchen with my dad and my stepmom, kneading dough, cutting cabbage, and spending time together in an all-day affair. For me, dumplings connect me not only to my family, but to my culture, my heritage, and to the friends that I since shared them with. My class last semester was called The Idea of Happiness, and it explored not only that, but the concept of living well. One of the philosophers in that class said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." And I can't get behind this because he's saying that if you don't think about your life, you might as well be dead, but I can't get behind the idea that our lives are richer when we examine them with intention. And what better way to explore this concept than through something that we interact with every single day, food. Like I said in my introduction, food has always been integral to my life. My dad always cooked. Good food, good soul. He never said it, but I always felt it in my heart and in my stomach. And my mom, as she was going through college when I was really young, always made time for us to eat together. And those are moments that I treasure still to this day. So, because for me, food is not just food and life is not just life. I think that if you take the time to examine these things, you'll realize that we are shaped, we are created, we are made by the memories we create, the traditions we share, and the values we live by. I'm going to take you on a journey through my favorite foods, my comfort foods, foods in my life, and explain how I've examined them, and kind of inspire you to examine your own life in this way and then go beyond. Let's start with memories we create. A certain smell, and you're back in your kindergarten cafeteria where you first learned how to share. A certain song comes on, and you're back in the car, the windows are down, you're on the way to the beach, there's hot air in your face, this is your first experience with freedom. Just like the smells and the music, food has memories. And for me, one of those memories is eating and making yabeda with my mom. For those of you that don't know, yabeda is a Syrian dish. It's stuffed grape leaves, it's like rice, beef, and lamb. Super awesome to make, super yummy to eat. My grandpa's Syrian, and when he passed away 3 years ago, it puts a shock in your family, it puts grief in your lives. And so making yabeda with my mom and eating it was a way for us to keep his presence alive in our home. And I think that in learning that, with my mom showing me that the vein of the leaf goes on the inside, but when you roll it, it's perfect on the outside. I think that eating it with her and learning with her was this growth. I learned how to have patience, dedication, and I learned how to deal with the grief in my life. And I continued to make memories with food in college. Some of you in this room might recognize these pictures. I bonded over some girls on my floor over a cookie shaped like the words "you have." What better way to connect to your school and something sweet and amazing? And then a few weeks later, meeting people from my floor, my roommate made the Sunday brunch and nachos for game day. What a great solid foundation of my time here in college. The memories we have, they teach us lessons, and we need to reflect on them consistently, and maybe not constantly, but we need to think about where we are and where we were in the past and how we've grown into the future. If you think about yourself now and who you were 19 or 20 or 21 years ago, you realize how much you've grown, and in that short time, you have so much to grow going on, moving forwards. But personal growth is really important, but even food has its own type of personal growth, its own memory, per se. And I would call it tradition. Through hardships, celebration, time, food has evolved and changed to what we know today. Like I mentioned before, dumplings are one of the traditions. My dad is from Nepal, so I'm Nepali, and since I never learned the language from him, this is one of my first experiences with my culture. I remember being in elementary school, and I brought a thermos full of dumplings to school. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the weird kid with dumplings in her thermos. And you know, my dad loved me, so he made a second thermos that had soup in it. So not only did I have one thermos, but I had two thermoses. I was like, oh my god. Oh, but I still ate it though, because you don't waste good food. And looking back on it now, I realized that I wasn't the weird kid with two thermoses. I was just a regular kid who who had a piece of love with her and it happened to be in the shape of dumpling. And I'm pretty sure I was just the luckiest kid in the world for that. So this is my tradition. And coming to college, I began to share it. Last semester, I made dumplings for the people on my floor. If anyone walked by the kitchen, I was like, come in, have a dumpling. And sometimes they didn't want one, but if they did, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, it's the best thing in the world. And then 2 weeks ago, something incredible happened. My friends who I had made and shared them with texted me, and they were like, hey, can I have your recipe? We'd love to make them, and when we're done, you're so welcome to come and share them with us. And my tradition was shared. And that's when I realized that the traditions we have, our culture and our heritage, are not set in stone. Yes, they're about the past, and yet they're not lost there, they're not stuck there. If you take the time to identify your traditions, whether it is a recipe passed down through generations or a soccer team whose colors you want painted on your grave, you realize that these things shape who you are. If you recognize your traditions, you realize that they influence your life, they influence how you celebrate, how you cope, and how you connect with others. And once you recognize them, you get a choice to uphold, to redefine, or to create new ones, and take an active role in shaping your identity. This brings me to my last point, which is the values that we live by. Because not every food in my life, and I'm sure not every food in your life, has this memory or tradition associated with it. Maybe it is just a habit or a choice or a preference. In my family, we're an ingredient household. For those of you that know, fruit, handful of chocolate chips, almonds, for me, bread with honey on it. Very, very common snacks in my house. And on nights we didn't want to cook, we would make pasta, but it was never just like pasta and sauce. We threw in like sausage or a fun shape or spinach, and this is my life. And then coming to college, I started every single day last semester with a bowl of fruit. And then when Broward was closed at night, I made pasta. And I'm like, wait, maybe this goes deeper. Maybe there's something more to this. And I realized that in these habits and these choices that I make every day are the values that I live by. In fruit, in simple snacks, a value in simplicity, in little things in life. In the creative pasta dishes, a value in creativity and resourcefulness. And overall for me, my natural gravitation to these foods and to this whole talk really shows me that at my core, one of my true values is a family. And I think that if you look at your lives and you examine your values, you'll find where you truly lie, what shapes you. So I implore you to start small. Think about the small choices you make in your life. Majestic said, do you make your bed? That's diligence. That's discipline. Do you make time for friends when you're stressed? That's loyalty and that's self-care. Do you always show up on time or are you always early? That's respect. Now think about your bigger decisions in lives. You're here at UF. Why? If you're in state, is it because you value that comfortability, that familiarity, and that financial aspect? If you're out of state, is it because you wanted that independence, that novelty, and great rates here, that financial aspect? Why are you here? And now that you're here, why are you doing what you're doing? You're pre-med, why? You're an art major, why? You're undecided major, why? These choices, these things that you do, they tell you about who you are and what your values are. And if you take the time to examine that part of yourself, again, you have such an opportunity. Because we can't change what we don't know. Once you identify your values, you have the breadth to change and cultivate who you want to become. I think that if we take the time to ask ourselves why more often, if we start small and think about what we eat and why do we eat it, if we think about the clubs that we're in, that we're joining, and then why we're in them and why they're joining them, and the people that we surround ourselves with, if we ask ourselves why we do that, and do these people help us create memories? Do we want to share our traditions with them? And do they align with the values that we live by? If we ask ourselves why and take the time to explore who we are, we'll be surprised by who we are and who we want to become in the future. I hope that you kind of forgot this talk was about food and realized that it was about something much greater. It's about who you are and taking the time to recognize who that is so you can become who you want to be. I believe truly that food and life are richer and deeper and better when you examine them with intention. Start small, dream big,